Welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. On today's show, it is Tuesday morning, so we are going to give you our waiver wire picks for the week. It's our wavering show. I'm going to be joined again by Logan Glaser of RealTime Fantasy Sports. We're going to give you all of our favorite waiver wire pickups for this week. Should be an interesting week to hit those waiver wires. We had some injuries once again. I'm going to bring Logan onto the show now. Logan, thanks so much for joining me once again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. An exciting week too. We had several blowouts, but we also had a couple of close games and a few injuries as well to dissect.
And in those blowouts, there were some monster fantasy performances, though. I mean, there was players. If you had certain players on your team, like a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, you likely won your games just because of them. It was definitely a much higher scoring week this week.
Yeah, it was a very boomer bust week, especially with the wide receivers. And you also had a couple of duds with some running backs and a couple star players like Jefferson went a little cold. Dalvin Cook was a little cold last night, and so you either hit big this week or you hit a lot of zeros.
It's kind of been like that all season, though. Quite frankly, with the running back position, hasn't been very good. A couple guys had good performances last week, but for the most part, it's been kind of down. And the receiver spot, it's looking like maybe that strategy of going receiver early is the way to go at this point in NFL in fantasy leagues, I should say.
For sure, especially, yeah, you got Cup, Jefferson, Diggs, all looking phenomenal through the first 2 weeks.
All right, let's talk about these waiver wire picks, Logan. Let's get into the QB spot first. I don't think there's a ton on the waiver wire to hit this week, but a couple guys you mentioned are guys that I have on my list as well. So I'll let you talk about them. But let's go into them right now. Who's some quarterbacks you're looking at picking up this week?
Yeah, the two I'm looking to pick up are Jared Goff and then Jimmy Garoppolo. So Goff is only owned in 34% of our RT sports leagues, and he is one I would feel comfortable starting in my lineup with how many weapons Goff has. We kind of talked about this several times, but Goff isn't ranked inside the top 10 so far through the first 2 weeks. He's got Minnesota, Seattle, and New England as his next 3 matchups. I absolutely love those matchups for him as well. He's got 6 touchdowns so far through 2 games, only 1 interception. And again, he's got so many different options to throw to, including Swift throughout through the backfield. So I really like him, and I feel comfortable starting him even in 12-man leagues, picking up Goff off the waiver wire. Another one is Jimmy Garoppolo. After the Trey Lance injury, he does not have as much upside as Trey Lance just because of Lance relied so much on his running ability, and that's what ended up actually getting him hurt. But Garoppolo is only owned in 10% of leagues, so he's going to be available to be picked up. Super flex leagues absolutely must go after him. You can probably bid 20 or 30% of your fab money. I would feel comfortable going after Garoppolo with, because he's going to be a starter for the 49ers throughout the rest of the season. He's got experience. He led them to Super Bowl recently. So I would feel comfortable getting him in super flex leagues. He's a little iffy on normal 1 QB leagues, though, for me.
And you notice too with Garoppolo, when he was in the lineup, they threw the ball a lot more. It's obvious to me that they didn't really trust Lance to air it out in that offense, but they do
They
trust
did.
Garoppolo.
Yeah, it helps Samuel and Ayuk a lot. I feel like having Garoppolo back in there instead of Lance running the ball now, they're going to be passing the ball a lot more.
Totally agree. One of my pickups that I really wanted to target this week too, you mentioned already, is Jared Goff, but like you said, he's available in 66% of leagues. That offense is very good. A lot of options for him to work with. So I like the Goff call on your part. So I'm just going to give one pickup for me, and that's Marcus Mariota. I think it's the second straight week I've had him on this list, but I like him just because of his floor, because he runs the ball. He didn't run the ball well last week, but he still threw 2 passing touchdowns, almost had a great comeback against the Rams on the road. So he did that against a good defense, threw the ball well, but still his ability to run the ball is going to help him have a good weekly floor. So I think he's a good a pickup for fantasy teams. You're looking for somebody to stream on a weekly basis. He's still available in 72% of leagues on our site as well. So I like Marcus Mariota, and I like your Jared Goff call as well, Logan. Let's get into running back. So we've kind of talked about this position being kind of, frustrating for fantasy teams right now. And I don't think there's a lot of great options this week personally to pick up on the waiver wire. There's a couple guys because of an injury, but besides that, not a lot of great looks at the running back spot this week. But we got a couple guys we're going to throw at you. So Logan, why don't you give us your first running back?
Yeah, first running back is going to be Darrell Williams for Arizona. Because of James Conner injury, we're kind of still unsure how much time James Conner is going to miss, but he did not return for the game. So it's kind of looking like Darrell Williams, and he's going to be kind of splitting the backfield with Benjamin. So they might have like an even split load, but I still really like targeting Williams throughout the waiver wire. I don't feel comfortable spending a huge amount of fab on him, but I would, if you have an open roster spot or you need someone a little upside, go ahead and take a chance on Williams. He's had the experience kind of being in that running back one role with Kansas City last year with Clyde getting hurt for several games. He's got the dual threat with being able to catch the ball out of the backfield and also rush. He had 3 receptions in their week 2 game after Connor got hurt, along with 8 carries, put up 14 fantasy points. So I like him. Here's a crazy stat. So throughout the first 2 weeks of fantasy football, or throughout the NFL season, not one running back has scored over 17 points in both the week 1 and 2, which is very surprising given the talent level at the running back. So, I mean, it's been kind of hit or miss, as what we kind of said. Even Taylor had a disappointing week last week, and he was coming in as that for sure number 1 pick. So you never know what you're going to get with running back. And for the second running back, I'm going to be, and this is not really a waiver pickup, but I'm going to be trying to trade for Ramondre Stevenson. He's currently owned in 94% of RT Sports leagues, but he was only started in 26%. So Montgomery's now on the IR for New England, and Stevenson actually outsnapped Damian Harris. He played 65% of the snaps for New England. He didn't put up great numbers, so I think you can still get him pretty cheap. But how much Stevenson is playing, and they're going to be looking to give him the ball a lot more. And Damian Harris looked a little banged up. He was limping off the field in the very last carry of the game for New England. So I expect Stevenson to get a lot of workload next week, and I love his upside.
So ironically, I just saw Stevenson dropped in one of my leagues, and I was going to go pick him up.
There you go.
Many of those same reasons you said there, Logan. So I'm going to talk about the other Arizona Cardinal back, and that's Benjamin. He's still available in 58% of leagues as well. Like you said, I think it could be an even 50-50 split with these two in the backfield. James Conner, he's just up in the air. It seems like he avoided something too serious, but he definitely has an injury history. So you never know with him about having to miss time with this latest ankle injury that he has. So could end up being a split. I like Benjamin just because he can catch the ball really well as well. He has 3 catches in each of the first 2 games he has played this year. So he's been more of the backup. Williams played last week for the first time. He got a lot of carries. A lot of those were late in the game. I think they're both decent targets because they're both going to split work. But I might lean Benjamin just a little more just because I think he's going to catch the ball more in that offense. So it's a close call, though. But Benjamin's another guy to consider if you're looking for a running back to add to your roster for this week. My other one is Jordan Mason with the San Francisco 49ers. They're down 2 backs. Terrion Davis-Price got hurt last week. Elijah Mitchell's out as well. So Jeff Wilson's starting. But they like to give their backup work in that offense. And I think Mason's going to get some touches. He has not touched the ball yet this year. He looked great in the preseason, though. Won a roster spot with them because of that. He's an undrafted free agent. A lot of people thought he would be the Elijah Mitchell of this offense this year. So he definitely has some potential. And I think he's worth a spot if you're in deeper leagues. He's available in 79% of leagues. So I might take a chance on him, especially in an offense that likes to rotate the running backs. Let's go look at receivers now, Logan. How about a couple receivers on the waiver wire you're looking at? This is a position I think is a lot deeper and a lot more guys available for fantasy teams.
For sure. Yeah, I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson as the first wide receiver I'm going to be targeting. He's rostered in only 65% of RT Sports leagues. So 35% of leagues you can still get him in. He's currently ranked 11th overall wide receiver through the first 2 weeks. He's seen a monstrous 22 targets through the first 2 games, which is insane for especially rookie wide receiver. We came into this fantasy season knowing the wide receiver rookie class was very deep, but we've seen great performances so far from Wilson, Dotson, London, Olave. It's been absolutely great from the rookie wide receiver so far, and I'm going to ride that hot hand with Garrett Wilson. The second wide receiver I'm going to be looking at is Noah Brown. He's only owned in 1.6% of RT Sports leagues. So he's kind of my deep sleeper wide receiver pick that I'm going to be looking to pick up in some of my leagues this weekend. He's seen 14 targets throughout the first 2 weeks. Last week, he had 91 71 yards plus a touchdown. He's got great chemistry with Cooper Rush, and they've constantly been talking about each other throughout the past week about how much they trust each other, especially Cooper Rush has emphasized how much Noah Brown means to this office, and he's looked great last week against the Bengals. So I'm going to be looking to pick him up as my kind of deeper sleeper pick and for wide receiver on the waiver wire.
Yeah, and Michael Gallup might play this week, so he's close to returning. But even if that happens, I think Brown's still going to be the number 3 in that offense and get a lot of looks. Like you said, great rapport with Cooper Rush. My receivers, 2 guys that I think could be a little boom or bust, but my first one's Sammy Watkins. So he did not get a ton of targets last week, but he still had 3 catches for 93 yards. He was out there getting chances. He started in that offense. I know Alan Lazard's there. I think it'll be boom or bust, but always capable of the big game in this offense. He's looked good. He's looked, spry and healthy for the first time in a while. So I think that he's a good pickup for fantasy teams, especially if you're in deeper formats. You want to take some chances on some guys you think can be, boom. I think Watson's a good guy to grab. He's available in 83% of leagues on our site as well. Another one's another veteran receiver. This one's another one with the Jets. I like Corey Davis. I think he's getting overlooked a little. He played 68% of the snaps in week 1, 79% of the snaps in week 2. So he's out there a ton. He made a huge play late in the game last week. He had 2 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown, 75 plus yards each of his first 2 games. So again, I think Davis might be getting overlooked a little bit in leagues. He's getting on the field a lot for the Jets. They're playing from behind a lot. So that means they're going to throw, and Davis is going to get targets. He's available in 69% of leagues on our site as well. Let's move on to tight end. This position's just been a disaster for fantasy teams this year. How about a couple guys that we think could help some fantasy owners here frustrated? Give me a tight end, Logan.
Yeah, if he's available, Gerald Everett, he's available in about a little over 30% of RT Sports leagues. He's currently the number 4 overall tight end throughout the first 2 weeks. He saw 10 targets last week, which is phenomenal for a tight end. He had 6 receptions for 71 yards, and with Keenan Allen hurting, he played even more of an emphasis on the Chargers offense. So I really liked his connection with Herbert. If he's taken, I also like Tyler Higbee as another option, which those two play together with the Rams last year, but Tyler Higbee kind of has that solo space now with Gerald Everett kind of been gone for last year. So I really like either one of those options, and I feel comfortable starting either one of those. A big question mark I really have the tight end is Kyle Pitts. He's been looking awful throughout the first 2 games with only has a couple of targets, and most fantasy players use the early third round pick and getting kind of Pitts with his ADP. What do you think about him so far, Jeff?
Yeah, it's a great question. He's definitely been a frustrating player. And, you saw the owners say this isn't fantasy football. We're trying to win football games. But you know what? Getting him involved is probably going to win you football games. So that didn't make any sense, that statement to me. And I think he needs to be a much bigger part of the offense. I don't get it at all. He actually produced better in the preseason. He was barely on the field. He made big plays in the preseason.
There's so much hype in the preseason with some of the plays he made.
I don't get it. I think he's got to be a factor sooner than later. I'm not jumping ship yet and, totally worried about him just yet. If it happens another couple weeks, then I will be, but definitely a disappointing start. My target for this week is Logan Thomas. So he's a guy recovering from a torn ACL. He actually was able to play the first game of the season. He has 3 receptions each of his first 2 games, found the end zone last week. He's getting healthier every week. That team's throwing the ball really well. I think he can be a big-time target in this offense. And he was not picked in a lot of leagues because of that injury. He's still available in 58% of leagues. Again, it's been a frustrating position. So I think Thomas is a guy I would look at grabbing if you're looking for help at that tight end spot. So, Logan, we like to talk about streaming defenses. A lot of owners like to stream their defenses. So let's do that right now. Give our picks for streaming defense for this week. Who do you got?
Yeah, very surprising one for me this week, and that's going to be Atlanta Falcons. So they're only owned in 1% of RT Sports League. So the odds are that you're going to be able to find them on the waiver wire. They're playing at Seattle, and really I like targeting either any defense that's going to be playing either Seattle or Chicago. I think those are the 2 worst offenses currently in the NFL, and there's a pretty big gap between there. Falcons just played against the Rams. They scored 14 fantasy points, which is great. They're currently ranked the number 5 overall defense throughout the first 2 weeks. Versus the Rams, they had 2 interceptions, a fumble, a sack, and also a special teams touchdown. So they found ways to put up points, especially for those fantasy users that started them.
Logan, you stole my thunder. My team that I am picking is playing the Bears.
There you go. There you go.
Houston Texans. That's who I have as my streaming defense. I actually looked at Atlanta too, ironically, and you picked them. So I pivoted. I took Houston. They're owned in just 2% of leagues on our site. Like you said, the Bears' offense is awful. That offensive line is not good, not giving Fields any time to throw. I think the Bears could have some success running the ball here, but I still think Houston's a good play, good streaming play, because they could get some sacks, maybe get some turnovers. They can't throw the ball at all right now. Chicago with Justin Fields. I mean, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet have done next to nothing. So
Yeah.
I think the Texans are a good play this week, good streaming play, and they're available in nearly every league, just owned in 2% on our site.
Yeah, when your number 1 wide receiver has negative yards, that's probably not a good offense.
Not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. All right, Logan, I appreciate you joining me once again on the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show in our wavering edition for this week. Should be a lot of fun watching the games again this week, and there's a lot more fantasy to be played. So if you lost these first 2 weeks, don't give up hope yet, right? There's long season.
Absolutely. Long season. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. Enjoyed it. Excited for week 3.
Awesome. All right. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Have a great day, everyone.